Hello, my name is Jeff Martin, and I recently wrote a book called Empower: The Four Keys to Leading a Volunteer Movement. I just wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts from the book that I think might be helpful as you look to lead your volunteer leaders. Just a couple of words for you to consider. The first one is this: the word involve. The word involve literally means to roll up. That's what the root term, to roll up something or someone into a process, a program, an organization. And many times that's how we look at our volunteer leaders. We need our volunteers to help run the various programs and things like that in our church. And so we want to involve them. And that's why you always see that on the promotions. Get involved, get involved. We need volunteers. So we're constantly trying to involve volunteers into our church, our organization, so that they can help push forward the programs and the goals that we have. It's not a bad thing. But if that's our only focus, then volunteers can just feel like they're being rolled up for mundane tasks of the organization. There's another word called influence. And the word influence is the root word, literally means to flow out. The Latin word is influere. It means to flow out into a community. That's where we get the term influenza, something that just flows out, uncontrollable. We know what that's like, having dealt with COVID. But it also is the root word for influence, that the ability for something to go from one person to the next and influence others. And the question is, do we really look at our volunteer leaders? Do we look at them as inherently having influence, that the people out there around them are listening to them, they're paying attention to them like never before? And are we doing everything we can to lean into their influence, or are we only looking at to involve them? Which word are we looking at? We can do both. But I would say the church historically has mainly been involving the volunteer leaders. So as we look to see how are we going to approach ministry different post-pandemic, I believe that we need to show incredible value to our volunteers. And here's how we do it. A couple of just practical steps. One, look for ways to include your volunteer leaders in some of the decision making. Now, I'm not saying where as a leader you're just going, I don't make any more decisions. I'm saying, how can you include? To ask them, what do you think? Many times as leaders, we want to control everything and have everything set up and then deliver that and give that to our leaders. And the reality is that our leaders don't just want to take in what we ask them to do. They want to take on something. And so when you include them in something that is a great cause, a great urgency, something epic, something, if they don't show up, it's gonna fail. You're including them on that makes a difference in their heart. And the second thing to consider is not just include them, but elevate their responsibility. Elevate it. It seems somewhat counterintuitive, because when we go to get our volunteers, many times we lower the bar of expectation. Hopefully they'll just step over it. We can say yes, and then say have a big thank you party at the end of the year and say thank you for stepping over that small bar. But the reality is if you raise the expectation, not all the time, but at times you throw that in there and say, we're going after something big, it releases something in the heart of your volunteer leaders. They want to not just take in information, they want to take on something. And that's what releases influence into the world. So as we look at opportunities to do that, there's a million ways to do that in our organization, including them and then elevating what we ask of them. At times takes great risk on our part as leaders. When we ask them to do that, it could fail. But that's okay. That's okay, because they know that if you elevate and include them, they know that you're serious about them, that you trust them and that you value them. You don't just want them to be rolled up in the organization, that you see they have great influence. So that's just a couple of thoughts. Talk a lot more about this in the book, but if you're going to create movement, That's the way we need to be thinking. Craig Groeschel said it this way. He said, if you want workers, give them a task. But if you want leaders, give them authority. And I think that sums up very well what it means to show value on your volunteer leaders. And I hope that helps as you're looking at how to navigate leadership in your church and leadership in your volunteers, and how can you release that influence that they already have by including them and elevating them in a variety of ways. I hope this has been helpful, and God bless you as you lead your organization.